Hello there, everybody, and welcome. So, I'm currently experimenting with the Eldritch theme on all the factions, and it's been time for the Industrious, and boy, did they surprise me. So, I've concocted a morale-based Eldritch build that is so far among the most wicked and powerful things that I've created with the current theme. Turns out the Industrious, with their staying power, are extremely synergistic. Their prospecting gameplay ends up with an insane amount of knowledge production. So as you see there, this is where we're at. And it also plays extremely well with the free cities, so a lot of things going well for this build, and let's head right into it. So, cultural and racial trade-wise, I went for arcane focus, mainly because a lot of our oomph comes from our supporters. Surprisingly, they deal a lot of damage, and all of them are magic attackers, even your steel shapers. Even if they do physical damage, it is a magical attack, so magic attacks deal more damage. We're picking also up secondary resistance, mainly because this gives the build a major staying power versus magic nuke builds, which is very important in my humble opinion. Feel free to swap that out for whatever you want. Overwhelm tactics for more crits, pack tactics for more damage. There's so many things that you could slot into this one. Feel free to go crazy. I wouldn't recommend to swap out Arcane Focus because it really makes up a lot of smack in all supporters, and we do have a lot of supporters in this build. Adaptable, well, since the Mystic update, strongest 1-point trait, as level ups on units are really powerful nowadays. So where do we go from here? I went for Runesmiths. Turned out, though, that this is entirely replaceable for whatever you want to go for. The productivity of the build easily stems the costs of the unit enchantments, and this is something where you can go for whatever you please. The secondary trait, though, keep yourself knowledge. Keep that unless you have no free cities in your realm. The thing is, it gives you a steep edge knowledge-wise right from the get-go, and it is stupidly easy to maintain good relationships with all free cities, giving you very easy access to Rally of the Lieges units, and at the same time you also have a ton of knowledge due to the all-seeing trait, which gives you 15 knowledge per Whispering Stone in the free city, and extra knowledge for open borders treaties. Pretty good stuff. Altogether, let's head over to the tomes. So, for the first one, I went for Faith. It was a very hard decision. With the previous Eldritch builds, I went for Battle Mages, but I figured that Battle Mages and the Industrious faction are just not a good fit at all. I would have had to make too many sacrifices synergy-wise in the Tome section, so I ended up with a support-heavy build. Tome of Faith provides all we need. Chaplains are so good as they are the available burst heal that we crave for. This is making your steel shapers so much more useful, and as a nice little bonus, they also come with a attack damage steroid, which also happens to give you bolstered stacks. Instant synergy with the Industrious, because we can transform these into healing or buffs. Good stuff. Also, Staves of Mending is a insane power tool, giving all of your supporters a free action touch heal spell, which, yeah, I mean, the amount of healing that you crank out of your supporters all of a sudden by just having Staves of Mending and a few Chaplains and Steel Shapers is insane. Faithful Whispers is a power tool to get early dominance on the free city market and compete henceforth. Powerful spell. Very powerful. And the Convent is super nice as we have a lot of building power with the Industrious, goes without saying. We are easily able to maintain all the buildings that increase city stability, which then crank out more knowledge and mana. Nice, innit? So, Mending Touch on your heroes is amazing. I pick it up wherever I can, and the Abbeys give you even more knowledge for farms, so you can maintain huge cities and knowledge. Good stuff. The second tome to pick up, of course, Tentacle, since we're running an Eldritch build. So where do we even start? Constricting Focus is what we need for the supporters to make them constrict the enemy. From here on, your supporters are ought to whack whatever you can't get under control with your frontliners. Good stuff, as this gives you a ton of control over the battlefield. Constrictors are interesting, but not so powerful in this build as they are in many others, since the tier 2 cultural spear of the Industrious is dope. It is even better than these ones, so the constrictors in this build fulfill a utility role. Conjure Tentacle is your friend in need, where every things don't work out, slap a tentacle and hold the enemy in its tracks. Also available for your heroes. It is massive. So tier 2, we're heading on over to Doom Herald or Revelry first, depends on your own liking. So the major tools that we want from the Doom Herald tome are Joy Siphoners and Cruel Weaponry. We have almost only cultural units, so Joy Siphoners is a feast. It buffs up our critical hit profile while debuffing the enemy's ability to hurt us. Good stuff. And Cruel Weaponry just amplifies the same effect even more. This is a super good mechanic that always, since ever, worked well for the Industrious, and, well, the Eldritch component just increases the staying power as we have even more control over everything. Cause Despair can be used to give a little bit of a nudge towards the bad morale, and the Summon Banshee spell is insofar interesting as it gives you a tier 3 battle mage that benefits from the constricting focus, as this is also a battle mage enchantment, so you can have a high quality battle mage, but don't expect too much from them. We don't have a high damage profile. Their main idea is to spam the Wail of the Banshee to decrease morale and weaken the enemy. Doom Depth Trenches are really cool, as we end up being evil quite often with the Eldritch theme, and that slight dent into city stability can be easily mitigated. Revelry is the second part of the equation here. The synergy between Doom Herald and Revelry is insane. It begins with Revel's Heart, as we gain 50% more morale from all sources. So, while we still only drain 4 points of morale from the enemy, we're gaining 6. And this makes us hit faster, harder. Blood Fury weapons goes into the same dent, giving you melee dudes a nice little edge and also a nice little extra morale when they get to last hit. The Scalds are really powerful in this build. Not only do they have a native insanity attack, they also can constrict enemies with a pretty high likelihood, 60% on supporters. They also feature all the goodness of your support amplifications that you have already installed, featuring also a point-blank AoE power-ups and regenerations and speed-ups. These guys are amazing, as they have a very good damage profile and offer really cool utility and always feature a heal on the front line. Rebels of Carnage is a situational thing, but if you have the energy, and as you see here, I easily have, it is very interesting as, like I said, experience levels matter so much nowadays, and spamming that on your high-tier army bracket can be very powerful. Revel's Triumph is amazing on your heroes as it makes your critical hits matter more, and since we don't have the insane amount of damage amplification modifiers in this build, this is very handy. So, after we hit that, we go over to the Tome of Corruption. So where do we start here? I highly recommend Gloomstrider, as this makes a very big difference for our species. We gain a little bit more physical resilience, but most importantly the Curse Eater, which transforms negative status effects into temporary HP turn by turn. This is amazing. We also get to float and move fast, which is really cool. Sadly, we lose our mounts. That is why I haven't implemented any mount strategies into this build. Eldritch theme just doesn't go well with mounts in general. The other part we are after is Corrupted Boon. This is especially interesting when you are heading into the late game phase, or the phase where you want to hit the AI enemies hard, as this can straight up counter any buff strategy very hard. Insidious Whispers Thrones give you extra mana income, which is not that interesting, but the extra casting points aren't so far interesting, as world map casting points are a power of the Eldritch theme in general. The amount of world map casting spells that you got is also the amount of shenanigans that you can do, like Rebels of Carnage or Umbral Incursions, or. This is an interesting power of this build, as you get to handle a lot of madness down on your enemies. And if you don't want to go down that path, invest that mana into Umbral Mistresses. You need a highly upgraded tower up to the apex, but these girls provide everything you still need. They have a very high damage profile all over, while maintaining a lot of tools to control the enemy. So these are really your high profile units. The other tier 3 tome to pick up, here things become quite interesting. In the current iteration, I have spec'd my hero to give myself 3 order, which opens up the path to subjugation, which is an amazing fit for this build. Intimidating aura plays so darned well into what we are already doing. Tyrant Knights give us a nice tier 4 shock unit, so we have somebody to hit hard with all those crits that we have maxed out already. And the Baron's Palace is pretty nice if you go for conquests. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The rest of the spells aren't that fascinating. The other option that you got, if you can't grab yourself a little bit more chaos affinity than I have got here, is the Tome of Pandemonium, which is an insane fit for what we are already doing. Havoc magic is really powerful on supporters. As you see here, the 60% chance is for repeating attacks, non-repeating attacks. I think it must be 90% or whatever. I don't have it on top of my mind, I'm sorry. But either way, this straight up amplifies what we are doing already, and we're topping it then off with a Chaos Eater, which we can send into the fray of debuffed enemies. We can even pull somebody out, so the Chaos Eater can engulf himself between debuffed enemies and consume chaos, can become a very, very devastating tool of mass destruction. So you have also Mass Hysteria, which is pretty much the same as Havoc Magic, just in a 1 hex radius, and Vessels of Chaos, well, it is just the straight up damage amplification that you want. So depending on which path you took, I personally think that Pandemonium has the stronger power profile in general. So from that point on, well, where do you want to go next? I'd highly recommend to pick up still Oblivion, as Oblivion provides so much synergy with the corruption theme in general, and from that point on, I'd say pick up whatever feels good for you. Feel free to backtrack into lower tiers. There is still, for example, Tome of Mayhem to pick up, which is amazing for all what you do already. There is Devastation, which gives your melee units a nice punch. And there's also Monstrous Rebirth and Warbreed. If you didn't go for Subjugation, for example, very nice fit. You've got options. Either way, don't run into the trap to head too heavily into further tier 4 tomes. You don't necessarily need that with the amount of control and staying power you've got. So, let's talk the units and strategy part. So, from the low tier, you basically can ditch everything. The Anvil Guards are nice to have to burn somebody on the front line, but that's about it. They'll get outshadowed so quickly by pretty much everybody else. I personally haven't missed them at all while maintaining my front line with Constrictors and Halberdiers. There was no issue at all until the Bastions hit town. So Anvil Guards are, well, you can fill up your ranks with them, as they are inexpensive and pretty robust, but their damage is pretty low. Instead, I'd vouch for some early game Arbalists. 3 or 4 of these are pretty interesting, as their base attack has a nice punch, and their overthrow crossbow effect is very hard hitting and cancels defense modes. So these are a real godsend for the early game, but they fall off very quickly, so feel free to replace them. But they're pretty nice if you wanted to clear out a lot of monsters early on. Pioneers are really important to prospect all those mountains, and by all means do that as much as you can. 2 or 3 pioneers at least to prospect, if you have some terrain to go for, provides you a crap ton of production, gold, and artifacts to work with, which is really, really cool. Tier 2, The world is your oyster. This build features, as most Eldritch builds, a very robust Tier 2 section. The Chaplain is your go-to guy for burst healing, buffing, and some nice spirit damage. Whereas the Steel Shaper's role lies in physical damage, and they have the ability to transform bolstered stacks into burst healing and strengthening, and they can also dish out defense stacks. This makes them more of a defense enhancing supporter, while the chaplains fulfill more the role of healers and damage buffers. On the spear end, the halberdier should be your straight up go-to guy. They have the rune of retaliation, and that's why they are so freaking good. Reflecting 40% of the enemy's damage makes it a viable strategy. Just stand in front of the enemy and let them punch you and heal these guys back up, and you win. It is amazing. I love that about them. And to top it all off, their damage is quite decent. Their resistances are, in this case, also very good against magic damage. The Constrictor, on the other hand, is better at hurting people, can constrict, but is not so good or not even remotely capable of reflecting damage, which puts the Constrictor into the offensive role of your front line and Halberdier into the defensive role of your front line, basically. The Chaplains and the Steel Shapers are ought to buff, heal, and shoot people that you can't cover with your front line, basically. And once you hit the tier 3 realm, Bastions are your real front line. They have a pretty decent attack, and finally we have also a method of AoE damage dealing while having these monsters that just are super hard to kill, spread bolster defense stacks, and yeah, these guys are your mainstay that you want to go for. Skulls are the other part. They are basically, well, how to put it? They're the link between the chaplains and the steel shapers. And basically 2 of these are enough for your army, or 3. They excel at accompanying melee people to buff them up directly and dish out insanity stacks where they are needed, whereas the chaplains and the steel shapers excel at staying really back. So the Scots are your close to mid-range supporters, so to speak. Now, the last bit of your roster would be the Banshees, and these are... I haven't researched them here, and these are also mid to close range units that die horribly fast, and I wouldn't recommend them too much. This build is mostly balanced around the supporters. Fill up your ranks with Umbral Mistresses instead if you want to have some Battle Mage action. So your roster, as you see, should consist out of a pretty balanced total amount of melee and supporters, because both parts of the equation are very important. It doesn't hurt if a couple of Arbalists accompany your late mid-game stack for a while, but you should use these as an excuse to fill up the ranks with Umbral Mistresses or Bastions, Scalds, or stuff from the Rally of the Lieges, because you are so darned good at doing this. This build excels with in terms of Rally of the Lieges application in so many terms. We have access to so many different Whispering Stones things, and the slight influence of Order brings you ever closer to a lot of nice effects that give you more friends among the free cities, which brings you to a lot of vassal rally points. All right, so last but not least, you have also a very, very strong economy, and you have to decide for yourself whether you want to incorporate free cities by integrating them or build the cities on your own. Both methods work. I really haven't found any weakness except for the combat does take a little bit longer. But due to the fact that you can hold down whatever would be a problem, tank whatever is not a problem, heal up whatever damage is being dealt to you, and you are constantly debuffing the enemy on every end, I have found all the combat to be quite a joke with this build, even if it took 2 or 3 turns longer. So the spellbook of yours is very, very powerful. I want to point out here, especially Steel Fury chant. So after a couple of turns, 3 or 4, when a couple of bolts defense stacks have racked up everywhere, I highly recommend to pull the nuke here. The fun part is you don't really lose that much. Yes, your resilience goes a dent lower, but this build excels at stacking up bolstered defense stacks from all manner of sources very quickly. Again, use that at the beginning of the turn. That is pretty important. Like turn 3 to turn 4 are typical good moments. Bolstering chant, nice burst heal, tentacles for control. Wrath of the Faithful is not so interesting here as we don't have that many faithful units, but don't sleep on it. It can be sometimes a real nice nuke. And retaliating growths, since we are so good at counterattacking, it's a sexy choice too. Alright, what can I say? There's nothing more to say. I really enjoyed this one, and it has been a surprise star as I felt very invincible with this build throughout all the stages of the game. Oh yeah, there's one last thing to say though. Your tier 1 phase is garbage. This is where you should focus on prospecting, gathering the materials to get the tier 2 town hall together as fast as possible. That is a very important last caveat about this build, but it is very true for the Industrious faction in general. Alright, thanks for watching, you all. I have nothing more to say. Leave your comments down below, leave a interesting thought what you want to see build-wise from my end. Thumbs up would be appreciated. Consider subscribing and check out the description box, which is full with links. First off, the playlist link to all my Age of Wonders 4 stuff that I did, and of course, support links. Feel free to support the channel, and thanks if you do. And of course, a big thanks for watching the video. Happy to have you around. Have a good one, and bye-bye.